Hello, BookTube, and I'm freezing cold today. It's literally like 20 degrees today, and it's sunny outside, but unless you're in the sun, it's one of those days where you're like freezing cold if you're in the shade. And my room is very blocked off by the sun, so it's freezing cold. And because I'm me, I also open a window because, get some fresh air, so the cold air is coming in too. And I'm literally here, I've got trackies, I've got literally a dressing gown wrapped over my legs too. Like you would have think I'm in like Canada or something right now, but you wouldn't think I'm in Australia. But anyway, we're doing a book haul today. I haven't done a book haul in literally like 3 weeks or whatever, and it's been a while. And as you can see, I've got a lot here. And yeah, let's get started. This is gonna be a very boring um themed book haul. It's pretty much just it's only Australian books. Here we've got some political stuff because of recent events. I thought, why get back into that, and I've got some Australian classics too. So it'll be really fun to the handful of people that know these authors and know these prime ministers too. But let's get started. So the first book we have here, I'll start with the fiction stuff. We have Patrick White. Everyone loves Patrick White. I've read Voss and his memoir, like his autobiography, and I thought they were really good. So I thought I'm gonna buy more Patrick White because I don't know. He probably is a national author, but I don't know. I've never met anyone that really loved Patrick White, and maybe I'm that person because I just got the Vivisector. I don't know much about this, um, but yeah, it's Patrick White. We'll see what we think of it. If I don't like it, it's going. And then we have, I've always heard of this one here. It's Elizabeth Harrah's The Long Prospect. I've always heard this is one of the great underrated Australian novels or whatever. And it's pretty much, I'll read it out. Growing up neglected in a boarding house, 12-year-old Emily meets Max, a middle aged scientist who encourages her intellectual interests. For this innocent friendship, Emily faces scandal, snobbery, and psychological torment from the elders. Sharply observed and darkly funny, The Long Prospect confirmed Elizabeth Howe's author, confirmed her, author of The Watchtower, as one of Australia's most important writers. And has a quote by Christina Steed, and we love Christina Steed. I don't have any of her books, but we love Christina over here. So yeah, I've got that. We've got another Patrick White novel. We have his debut, Happy Valley, and these are the text. These editions here. These are what are they called? They're called text classics, and retail price they're literally $10, and they don't have notes or anything. They're just a reprint line because I remember hearing that they got started because they like it was shocking how little Australian books were in print over here, and they decided to do their own line, and I support that so much. And yeah, so we have that. Then we have I was the last fiction one, Amy Whitting's A Change of Lighting. This is about a divorced couple and the fallout of that, pretty much. And that's really all I know. So yeah, we have those. Can't wait to get to them. And then for the last text classics we have today, it's a non-fiction one, and this came out. Oh my god, like 20 something years ago. It was a year before I was born, so 23 years ago. And that's The Dig Tree. And this is about the 1860 exploration. These people, a policeman, and this group of men decided to travel from Melbourne all the way to, which is at the bottom of Australia, all the way to the top, like I think probably Port Augusta or something like that, where it is so hot, like people literally live underground and all that stuff. And apparently it went awful and tragedy, like people died. I don't know how far they made it because that is a long ass journey, and I can't wait to read what's her name, Sarah's account about and her non-fiction book about that because I don't know much about that, to be honest. So those were the paperbacks, but now we got the real fun stuff. We've got some political books over here. Um, they're, there's pretty much only going to be Labour government books because I am so shocked. There's literally no history books about the Liberals at all. Like there's a handful of like memoirs and all that, but there's literally nothing. And maybe it's because Labour had a way more interesting history than the Liberal government. But anyway, let's get started because there's good chunks here. And I've read some of these already because they're really lovely. First we have The Rush That Never Ended: A History of Australian Mining, and mining in Australia is very important. It's one of it's. I always say it. It's kind of like gun culture in America, and the NRAs and all them. Like it's that embedded, into American culture. That's pretty much us with mining, and this is the history of how it started, and yeah, and how it built into one the probably the biggest industry, and still ongoing because we had a part where we were known for car manufacturing, but that stopped probably 10 years ago now. But yeah, so I haven't read this yet, and I want to get to it soon because I think that'd be very interesting to learn about. And then we have this is one I haven't read yet. The Light on the Hill, the Australian Labor Party history, 1891 to 1991. So it's a bit out of date. I don't think there's been a recent edition of this, but yeah, this is the history of the Labor Party, and how I believe it started from like labor unions and all of that during its beginning, and just how it grew into a government body pretty much. I think I could be wrong, but yeah, so we have that. Then we have one that I have read, and that it's big, and I audiobooked it at work, and it was very lovely. Um, it was Bob Hawke's biography, Demons and Destiny by Troy Bramston. This is probably the definitive biography of Bob Hawke. I've read his memoir he wrote in the 90s, and it's very defensive, and it's boring political memoirs and all that. But this was written towards the end of Bob's life, just before I think he was right. Troy was writing this as Bob was dying and published it later, and this is just his life, how he started working for Labour's and all that, and how he worked up to become prime minister, and he's run with that, and it really is an all-encompassing biography of Bob Hawke. It doesn't pull punches with him as a person, which I really liked. Like it wasn't going soft on him. It called out everything that Bob done, and and just hearing about his relationships with Paul Keating too was very interesting. And always knew Bob Hawke was like our prime minister in the 80s, but I just can't imagine him talking with like Reagan and Thatcher. Like they seem like they're so different. So many like Bob Hawke just seems so different compared to them in every single way. And it was really interesting to see that he got along with Thatcher really well, and he was friends with Reagan, but I think it was very much just like they were friends for their job. They wouldn't You can't imagine them hanging out besides that. But I know Hawke really did like the Bushes, and that makes a lot more sense because they're both of it. They love their parties. But anyway, if you're gonna do a Bob Hawke book, this is probably the best one I'd recommend. It's his whole life, and it's got a nice dedicate bit of it towards the end about after his run as prime minister, and yeah, just his end days and all that stuff, and how he made a lot of mistakes pretty much. But anyway, he is one of the great prime ministers. Then we have two books here, and we have all of these are biographies. We have Paul Keating. This is Recollections of a Bleeding Heart, and this is Paul Keating was the next prime minister after Bob Hawke. Keating was a treasurer while Bob Hawke was prime minister, and there's a big scandal about their agreements behind the scenes and all that, which is insane. But anyway, I haven't read A Bleeding from the Heart yet. I have read the other one I'll show you, and this is big, obviously. It's not as big as you think it is. It's only like just over 750 pages, and it's a nice hardcover. And I'm realizing all like my political books are randomly hardcovers, and I kind of love that, to be honest. So we have that, and then one that I read over the weekend. This is Keating by Kerry O'Brien. Was done later in life. I think this is in the last 10 years, and it's pretty much an interview that was pretty much put into book form. It was done by the ABC. I think I could be wrong. I haven't watched the original, but it's pretty much Kerry asking questions, and you got Paul Keating's responses, and I always thought it'd be interesting with something like this because Keating is very well known for being, having a mouth on him, and it's quite funny. Like his, you know, um, statements in Parliament are so iconic, and it was his greatest asset, but also his, Achilles heel at certain times. And I thought, would that show in the writing? And it kind of did. I can also see how this is very much Keating trying to not rewrite history, but, less exaggerate what happens and kind of putting like a spin on him that makes him look a bit better in certain times. But Paul Keating's great, of course. And yeah, the tone was very conversational. I really enjoyed it, and I never got bored. I thought the questions Kerry asked were very lovely too, very on topic, and for me, it probably will be the definitive Keating, as close as we'll get to a biography because this goes through his whole life. But this will be the closest I think we'll get in while he's like 81 or whatever. I didn't even know he was still alive, to be honest. But yeah, I think once he dies, maybe someone will go in and do a big, massive biography. It's not going to happen while he's alive because he said political biographies are rubbish, and they kind of are, if I'm being a bit honest. But there are some great ones. But anyway, I read this, very lovely. If you want a book about Keating, this comes directly from him, like his own mouth about his life. I haven't read Recollections from the Bleeding Heart yet. Then the last two we have here, this is a 2-volume set of Gough Whitlam. These by His Time by Jenny Hocking here. I haven't read these yet. I'm so excited to get to them. This is part 2 here. I think this is about more of his run as Prime Minister. He was in charge in the early 70s, and probably had the biggest scandal ever, because the oh my god the Governor General at the time, he he sacked Gough Whitlam like literally on Remembrance Day, and it was a big. It's still shocking us now that the Prime Minister literally got fired. And he did write a book about his own experience through that whole event, and I haven't read that yet. When I find a copy, I definitely will. But this is a big biography of him, and I can't wait to get to it because I don't know anything about Gough Whitlam. If I'm being a bit honest, I think he gets outside of his dismissal. I don't think he gets talked about as much, but I know people like ride or die with him, in terms of considering one of the great prime ministers, or even one of the great Labour Party leaders as well. So I'll see what I think when I get to this. So yeah, that was a quick book haul for the last like couple weeks. I know this is very much Labour biased, but again, I literally don't know any books about the Liberal government. Like I know John Howard done like a memoir or whatever, and I've read Turnbull's one too, which was a bit too long. It was like literally 700 pages. I'm like, why is this so long? But again, if you have any Australian classics you want to recommend to me, or any political books that you think would be that will complement what I'm reading right now, please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I'll see you next time.